Serious, what's the hardest thing you ever had to say to someone? I had to break the news to my girlfriend's parents that she was killed in a car crash. To make it worse, I knew them for 14 years. I grew up with them. Edit. Okay, here's a fact. Before I try to sleep, I've got work at 4 AM. No, I'm not Jim. Her dad's not Jim. Nobody is Jim. Drunk driver, April. Yes, my name is ironic. Had to tell my dad that the exploratory surgery didn't go well and he was sick with something fatal that progresses at a very quick rate. As he was waking up from anesthesia, my immediate family and I had to tell my 60-year-old dad he was going to die, and quite quickly. He lost composure for just a few seconds, began to tear up, and then immediately told us it was going to be okay. We told him he was gonna die and his instinct was to comfort us. Still makes me cry. He died 3 weeks later. Edit. Whoa, this story got me my first ever silver and gold. Thank you, Redditors. Also, leave your loved ones' voicemails every once in a while. Film each other. I have his last voicemail he left me while in hospice on every electronic device I have. It's absolutely precious to me. So much love to the commenters and everyone sharing their experiences with me. Thank you for your kindnesses. Telling my 16-year-old daughter that her 18-year-old sister, her best friend in life, had been killed by a drunk driver and would never come home. My youngest daughter's screams haunt my soul. I'm so sorry for your loss. My sisters are everything to me. I can only imagine all the pain you had to go through. For real though, I'd die inside. Even knowing it would be harder on my mom, I'd still also scream. I'm 32. At 16 that would have ruined me. And again it would be worse for my mom. It amazes me how strong people can be. I had to wake my mom up and tell her that my dad had died right next to her while she was asleep. No words for this, just huge feelings. Yeah man, it was rough. A relief in some ways, because A, he was in a lot of pain, and B, he died a sober man, which he had always wanted. But rough. One night when dad got home, I had to tell him that my brother called while he was out because our other brother died in a car crash. This was the first time in my life I saw my father absolutely broken. Parents should never have to live longer than their children. Edit. Grandma. I once heard somewhere, a person who lost a spouse is a widow or a widower. A child who loses a parent is an orphan. There is no word in the English language for a parent who lost a child because the pain is too great. Your son was involved in a vehicle accident. I was military police and was informing the family that their 3-year-old had been hit and killed by an SUV that was backing out of a driveway. The look on my face told her everything she feared was true. I struggled with that one for a long time. To this day, I've never heard such an awful sound come out of anybody. When I was a teenager, one of my best friends and his brother were in a terrible car wreck one night on their way home from a trip they had took. They were driving overnight to make it home by morning, had almost made it back. We got the call they were in critical condition in the hospital and rushed over. My best friend lived, his younger brother though did not survive the wreck. We were just outside his room when the doctors went in to tell him his brother didn't make it. The sound he made is probably similar to the one you have burned into your memory, and it's a sound I hope to never have to hear again. Told my mother that my brother had committed suicide. About a year ago I had almost committed suicide, but luckily my brother found out and had talked me out of it. We hugged and cried for a bit, and it changed my whole view. It was a moment for both of us. We were all going through a rough time, and looking back on it, I couldn't do that to him or my mom. Saying my final goodbye to my twin brother after sitting in the hospital for a week without brain activity. After 3 hours in the room, just me and him, the doctors and my mom came in, said it was time. I panicked, kissed his forehead, had to look away and just walk out. Dude, I'm not a twin myself, but I hear that losing a twin is one of the most painful things to go through. Sorry. I have a twin brother and this made me almost start sobbing at work. I can't read stuff like this. Telling parents that their child is dying and there's nothing anyone can do, or calling to inform them their child has already passed. I'm a pediatric nurse. It takes a special kind of person to work with kids. I lost my first son at 9 days old while he was in the NICU. Worst call ever. The nurses really helped keep me together. He would have been 13 years old 2 days ago. AWW, me and that little guy would have shared the same birthday. I'm gonna be thinking of him. Love you. It was the last words I said to my dad. We had a relationship where it was mostly unspoken, so we never said it to each other, which made it that much harder to finally say. He died not long after that night. I hope that he heard and understood it. Same happened to me though. I told him I won't visit you tomorrow, I have to go and train, and he was induced to a coma the next day and died 2 days after. Will regret it for the rest of my life. That sucks, man. Although, I'm sure he knew you loved him very much, regardless of what your last words were. Go and have an amazing, happy life in his honor. I had to tell my friend that I could no longer support his alcohol and cocaine addiction. I was just fed up. I was ready to give up. I had to tell him everything I was thinking. We cried and cried and cried for hours. I finally understood after we were done. He went to rehab and has been sober for a long time. Still the worst night of my life. Hardest convo ever. Sounds like that was a life-alerting concession for both of you. Good for both of you. I was working in 911 and I couldn't tell a mother that her adult child we went to check on was found dead. It was late at night and we had to wait for the coroner to get there to make the notification call. The mother and sister called over every 15 to 20 minutes for well over 2 hours, and each time we had to tell her that we had her info and she will be notified by the appropriate authority on scene. By the end she knew her child was dead and was trying to call us out on it, but we still could only tell her we had officers on scene and she would be notified. I had taken the initial call out for the welfare check from the sister and had been working with her all night to get my officer into the apartment. On my 15-minute break I just went and stood in the snow without a jacket to try and get my mind back on my work. I had to call my fiance's mom and tell her that her daughter just attempted suicide by overdose and drinking bleach while on the phone with me, and that I had no idea where she was in order to send emergency services. Fortunately she survived, but for about 24 hours I thought she was dead. Are you still together? Most relationships wouldn't survive that. We are no longer living together, but it's because of a complicated legal situation, not her depression. The stress of loving a suicidal person can be really unbearable though. For a while I was half expecting every phone call I got to be a death notification. Ma'am, on the behalf of the United States Army and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service. I performed dozens of military funeral honors. As a person who is related to a long line of military members, thank you. I don't personally serve, but the respect and tenderness shown to my great-grandfather, my grandfather, other family members, and when the time comes my father, it's not something we forget. My family certainly doesn't forget. Thank you. I have a friend that was seriously in love with his ex-girlfriend. So, after they broke up he took it really hard. He had this picture of them kissing on his bedside table and he never took it down after the breakup and would just look at it and tell me that he knew he would get her back. Eventually I just had to tell him that they hadn't spoken in 2 months and it was time to put the picture away and move on. That wasn't easy for either of us. You're a great friend. I can't help you anymore. I'm burnt out too. Glad to hear I'm not alone with it. You're all loved. Wow dude. That's one of the negatives to having the ability to empathize. Taking on someone else's problems will eventually cause us to burn out too. Kudos to you for being honest though. It takes balls to own up to that kinda Edit. Good grief. Who knew spelling out a passing thought on a Reddit comment would quadruple my karma? Reddit does appreciate the serious stuff, it seems. I wish I could help you, but I can't help someone who refuses help. I'm sorry, I have to go. This one hit home. I recently had to part ways with a toxic friend who really needed support, but was unwilling to accept it. She had a ton of mental health issues, and was already a severe alcoholic at 22, and despite her therapist's, and our other friend's best efforts, she would just constantly push us away, and refuse our help. It's been a few months and she slowly pushed away my entire friend group. She quit college and has no friends and lives alone and is miserable. It breaks my heart because I genuinely think she's a good person, but the relationship was destroying my mental health and I couldn't justify keeping it going. Ducking subscribe to Reddit throne. Ducking subscribe to Reddit throne.